Good morning. I'm going to take my mask off while I am speaking. And my name is Mark, and I am opening the service today. I don't see any newcomers here or in the Zoom. And I'm going to start with the opening statement. There is only one power and one presence in the universe. God the good, all power, ever present, all knowing, and we are one. And now our vision statement. We are a spiritual community with a passion to share love, faith, and hope. Our mission statement reads like this. We are an accepting, loving, and faith-filled spiritual community that honors all paths to God. And because this is the beginning of the month, it's birthday time, and I was wondering if anyone has a birthday. If you could raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or put something in the chat. And if you're in person, please raise your hand. Any birthdays here? To play Happy Birthday, because if you're not here and it's your birthday, this is for you. And if you want today to be your birthday, this is for you too. So hit it, Dave. Many more. Well, moving into announcements, I have one announcement that that Unity Church will be changing its password and its Zoom number within a week or two. So heads up for that. And are there any announcements?
That in 2 weeks, on the 21st, we will be having our annual membership meeting. And the materials will be going out to members very early this week. They're just about prepared to go. And so there will be materials mailed out. We're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to conduct the annual membership meeting, whether it will have to be all in person, or if we can figure out some way for those people who want to be on Zoom and actually can make it on Zoom. And this is only the members, the voting members. So all of that information will be in the packet that we're mailing out. And we hope to get a response so that we can forge ahead. We have a board meeting next Sunday, and we'll be finalizing a lot of the details at that point. So any response that people can give to the mailing to let us know exactly where you stand and how and if you will be able to attend the meeting. This is a crucial time. So we are asking for all the support that is possible from all the members. So just a heads up on that.
And I would like to invite Sandra to talk about a mini lesson on the 12 powers.
All is perfect, all is well. And as we're studying the mini lessons on the 12 powers, and each power, according to Charles Fillmore, is a power that has to do with our power, our spiritual power. Each one is associated with a month. The first month was January was associated with faith, and February was associated with strength. As we enter March, the association is with the power of wisdom, also called judgment by Charles Fillmore. The associated disciple is James, the son of Zebedee and brother of John. And there is a working together of those two disciples. They are brothers. John is the disciple associated with next month's power, which is the power of love. And so you keep that in mind. All of these powers obviously all work together. The associated color is yellow, and the associated center for the power of wisdom is in the solar plexus. And I think that's very appropriate just in our everyday understanding, because wisdom is that knowing. And how often do we talk about knowing something as a gut feeling? And so I think it's very appropriate to our language that power is associated with the solar plexus. I'm going to read from Charles Fillmore's work on the 12 powers, and that's the first, this comes from his chapter on wisdom or judgment. The great day of judgment, which has been located at some fateful time in the future, when we all shall be called before the judge of the world and have punishment meted out to us for our sins, is every day. The translators of the authorized version of the American Standard Version of the New Testament are responsible for the Great Judgment Day bugaboo. In every instance where judgment was mentioned by Jesus, he said, "in a day of judgment." But the translators changed "a" to "the," making the time of judgment appear a definite point in the future, instead of the repeated consummations of causes that occur in the lives of individuals and nations. We know that we are constantly being brought to judgment for transgressing the laws, moral and physical. Yet back of these is the spiritual law. When we awaken to the reality of our being, the light begins to break upon us from within, and we know the truth. This is the quickening of our James, or judgment faculty. When this quickening occurs, we find ourselves discriminating between the good and the evil. And as I was reading in the book Adventures in Resilience, which is also a more modern translation or interpretation of the 12 Powers book, their discussion of wisdom, the chapter on it is Wisdom, Astonishing Clarity, which I also thought was very appropriate. And the author tells this little story that I wanted to read because it really clarifies some of the things that we think about wisdom or judgment. And she writes, "One of my first spiritual teachers would respond to my muddled thinking about my marriage by saying, 'When you don't know, don't.' It was comforting to be relieved of having to figure it out and force a solution, which usually didn't work out well anyway." He went on to say, "Spirit never speaks in confused tones. Spirit always speaks in a way that you can understand. This is divine wisdom made practical. My teacher gave me a mantra to use while waiting for clarity. I know what to do, and I do it. Try it when you have an important decision to make and you aren't sure which way to go or what choice to make. The human perspective rushes us, pressures us to do something or avoid doing anything. The human mind is incredibly anxious about the unknown. It wants answers and wants them now. For this reason, our thinking will incline us to force a situation. We will want to make something happen or conversely push the avoidance button. Divine wisdom, however, is discerning and results in clarity regarding next right steps. Wisdom marries the facts of life with spiritual principles. Like King Solomon, it is the judge that sees beyond appearances, senses the truth in the midst of circumstances, separating with uncommon accuracy the wheat of life from the chaff. Divine wisdom walks the path of immense compassion in the direction of peace, wearing shoes of spiritual principle. And I thought that was very appropriate because it is that knowing, it is that gut feeling, and it's a very practical thing. The message is very clear, and when the message is unclear, then we have a tendency to think, oh, this is something external. No. The true wisdom, again, as with all the other powers, is found within. And that's where we go to find that wisdom, to that particular power, as with all the other powers. So that's the end of that lesson for today. We will be talking about wisdom for the month of March.
Now it's time for our love offering. And I believe abundance is love coming through our many gifts. Not just monetary gifts, but also talents that we have and share. And that our talents are gifts that enable divine love to flow through us. I also believe a smile is a gift to the world. Every act of kindness is a gift. So let's honor all gifts today by saying, divine love, through me, bless it and multiply all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Thank you for all the infinite ways love is shared through us. Thank you for all the infinite ways love is recognized by us. Our gifts uplift all life because our gifts are life coming through us, allowing love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And before we go into the Lord's Prayer, I would like to take a moment to introduce our speaker and our person doing the meditation today. And that person just coincidentally happens to be sitting right next to me. Hello, Sandra. She has a great ability to focus. And I believe power, that invisible strength of love, comes through her focus. And that focus always finds its way somehow to spiritual scripts, spiritual sayings, to within herself to find that love. So,
And as we continue in this moment of meditation, moving into the silence within, today we will be following Silent Unity's prayer service for our meditation. Just relax and know I am centered in God, my source of spiritual strength. And as we know that, just move deeper within. Relaxed, breathing evenly, just aware of your breath and the sense of that spirit within. We enter the sanctuary of silence within, devoting precious time toward unifying our mind, heart, and being with God, our source. Our human thoughts are now, and we know the truth that is spiritual strength. I release all to God. My spirit is peaceful and free. Easily, Gracefully, I release what has passed so that I am free in this moment for all that is possible now, in trust that the helpful, useful content of my past has carried over into the present. I rest in spiritual peace and freedom in the silence, in the silence. I open my mind to divine inspiration and follow my divine direction. Wise thoughts flow as answers to my heart's desires. Courageously, I am attuned to divine inspiration, confident and sure with every step. Never am I without a sense of direction, for everywhere I am, God is. I am inspired in prayer. Every atom of my being is invigorated with healing life. A universal external pattern for life is at the core of my body and being. Vital divine life is natural to me, for I am ever one with God, the source of life. I champion my vitality with every word of strength I speak to every atom of my being, here in the silence. I am prospered by divine love. The prospering power of divine love is my rich inner resource. Love is within me. Love flows from me. As I lead by love, I feel full and fulfilled. Whether giving or receiving, leading or following, abundant love is mine. In love, I pray. I am an emissary of peace and harmony in the world. From my core of spiritual strength, I am a steady presence of peace and harmony. Vigilant with my thoughts, I transform any inner discord into peace. Words of inspiration, encouragement, and support flow from my peace-filled mind to bless others. I love the world into peace and harmony as I pray within that silence. As we breathe, renewed and refreshed, we proceed by spiritual strength to fulfill the purpose of divine wisdom, life, and love. We agree to live based upon realizations arising from our time in prayer. And gratefully, we conclude this meditation by hearing together the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. And we begin to move back into this time, this place, this moment of awareness. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you for this time of silence, meditation, and prayer. And so it is. When I thought about what I wanted to speak about today, I thought it probably have something to do with the power of the month, and what I heard was, we haven't talked recently, we haven't really talked about prosperity. That's one of the main teachings of practical Christianity, especially in unity. And as I thought about that, now how would I work that? I went back to my very early years in unity and thought, I remember those basic teachings and what they meant to me as I was a beginning truth student and seeker. But first, I have to tell this story. This is, and hopefully it will not be offensive to anyone, because it has to do with the idea of reincarnation. And that is a fairly common teaching in unity, although it's not a dogma by any means. But I remember very clearly a few years ago, I went to a channeler, psychic, and he seemed to be pretty legitimate. In the course of the first two readings, he told me, this entity that was coming through, that I was definitely the reincarnation of Benjamin Franklin, which I was kind of taken aback. That idea, that was certainly not the first person I would ever associate with in history. Didn't really know too much more about Benjamin Franklin than what we have been taught in school. But it did make me get a biography of Benjamin Franklin, which I read, got some interesting information out of that. Can't say that reading that biography made me fall in love with Benjamin Franklin, or the concept, all of his concepts. But it was one of the quotes that came up probably immediately, and this is one I'm sure most of you are familiar with, written by Benjamin Franklin in Poor Richard's Almanac. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Heard it all my growing up years. It was a little difficult for me maybe because I was a night person. I tend to be a night owl. I'm not typically an early riser. And maybe another factor was I was a woman and not a man like Benjamin, or Poor Richard in this case, was referring to. But I have to admit, growing up, even though these maxims were really the basis of my instruction growing up, Benjamin Franklin, I'm not sure that Benjamin Franklin would have been a role model, but the maxims that we heard all the time seem very common sense, down to earth, very practical, and it's what you heard from your parents, from your teachers, it seemed to be the ideal. Fortunately, I was always, growing up, I was reasonably healthy. Some people thought I was reasonably wise. And I was fortunate to be fairly comfortable, if not truly wealthy, and especially growing up in a small town where my family were seen as kind of the big fish in a small pond. It was just a rural community, but my family members worked in the city. So, we were seen as the wealthy ones in town. I was comfortable, didn't think about it too much. During my teen years, I remember, and this may have been the throwback, if this whole Benjamin Franklin thing is true, I developed my own set of maxims during my teen years. But I didn't share them with very many people because not all of them seemed to fit with Benjamin Franklin's philosophies. As it turned out, they were foreshadowing some of the things that I would have to relearn or were re-taught to me when I came into Unity. This is kind of an aside, but I thought about this in terms of, the validity of this whole Benjamin Franklin thing. I had several years before I heard this, and this channel, psychic, whatever you want to call him, I saw him several times over the course of a year, and he consistently kept coming back to this, you're the reincarnation of Benjamin Franklin. It's kind of got to be old hat in a way. But one of the things that I thought about, which, as I say, it's kind of on the side, several years before he said this to me, I met someone through mutual friends. I met a man that I spent a weekend at his wife's house with some other friends. And for some reason, the two of us, I'll say his name was Jack, he and I stayed up long after everybody else had gone to bed, sparring, arguing in a friendly way. And it was like political, spiritual conversations that I just normally wouldn't have on that long a term basis. And I always thought it was really interesting. We were respectful of one another, but we had very differing points of view. And yet it was really important that we discuss all this. And the reason that I thought it was very interesting was after I was pronounced the reincarnation of Benjamin Franklin, I went to our mutual friends and shared that with them, which they just sort of, that makes sense. Yep, I can see that. And then they said, oh, our friend Jack, who lived a long ways away at that point, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, he was told that he was the reincarnation of John Adams. And I look back at that now and think, well, maybe that's the evidence for this whole thing. Maybe that's part of it. Because in my reading of the biography of Benjamin Franklin, he and John Adams were the ones that argued the most, that constantly were getting into disagreements in philosophy, and there was respect between them, but sometimes it became almost hostile. And I thought, now isn't that interesting? That's the only person. Now I've heard many, many stories recently about many of the founding fathers have come back and they are reincarnated at this time. I don't have any idea whether any of that's true or not. I just think the whole thing is kind of interesting. But I mostly saw, as I was preparing for this talk today, I mostly saw the influence that Benjamin Franklin's teachings had on a whole generation of, more than one generation probably, on our thinking about the way life works, and especially about prosperity. Because so much of Benjamin Franklin's teachings, written teachings, actually have to do with prosperity. Being industrious, being frugal, all the things that we probably all grew up with. As I said, I developed my own set of maxims during my teen years. I didn't share them with many people because not all of them fit with Benjamin Franklin's philosophy. But I continued to try and follow Ben's advice through a traditional marriage and homemaking and motherhood and finally a difficult divorce. Remember this. He wasn't sympathetic to the difficulties women dealt with in his times, and I was caught up at the beginnings of the feminist movement at that point in my life. It was all new territory and pretty confusing, kind of like the situation that most of us are facing today. Not all the old rules fit any longer. It was all new. After my divorce, I discovered unity. And in my exploration of a whole new way of thinking, I found a number of books by Catherine Ponder, and I proceeded to devour them. Catherine became an ordained unity minister and a revered teacher of prosperity principles. She'd come up through a life filled with poverty, discovered and embraced the principles that had led to her own prosperity, and shared them openly and lovingly in person and through her popular books. Now, as I was making my way through her books, and there are a number of them, and she was continuing to write. As far as I know, she's still continuing to write. I moved out of Michigan and ultimately settled for a while at Unity headquarters in Lee's Summit, Missouri. Part of the reason I landed there was when I went to visit, I was just going to pass through. I took a tour of the grounds. And it just so happened that my tour guide she had just come into the village, was settling in, was going to enter the ministerial school in the fall. This was in June. And as we got talking, I discovered this was Marianne Bowers, who had been one of Catherine Ponder's major book editors. And she knew Catherine Ponder very well. It was like almost like a sign. I remember her telling me the night before I left on my passing through, she said, "You'll be back. You'll be back here." Within 2 weeks, I was back there, and I was actually living with Marianne for a while until I found a place of my own. It was just this sense of Catherine Ponder. At that point in my life, Catherine Ponder was my teacher. And her main thrust was the main book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. She wrote that book, among many, many others. The chapters of the book, I'll just go through some of the chapter titles. The Basic Law of Prosperity, The Vacuum Law of Prosperity, The Creative Law of Prosperity, The Imaging Law of Prosperity, The Prosperity Law or Command, The Prosperity Law of Increase. It was fascinating for me. And the basics that I see in her teachings, I just went through this and made this list up last night as I was preparing. Starts with appreciation for where I am right now. It encompasses love and forgiveness. And then very practically, it's generosity. And Catherine Ponder is definitely very much into tithing. And for me, tithing has become a basic principle. We have gotten to the point where the church is now tithing 10% on all income. And I'm really proud of the church for taking that step, because I know in my own life, and I've gotten away from it, I get away from it, and then when I come back to it, there is a relief. Giving 10%, just knowing whatever percent, each person may have a different view of it. For me, I stick with tithing is 10%. 10% of the income that comes in goes to the source of your spiritual good. And in this case, that is when I'm in this church, this is where my spiritual source, this is where it is. So now I'm finding myself in a position where I want to revisit these fundamentals of prosperity. She also taught about affirmations and using affirmations and using creative visualization. But then again, the bottom line comes back to gratitude. We start with appreciation for where we are, but underlying it is always gratitude. And to me, the most powerful prayer there is under any circumstances is thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just practicing that. So why is it that I feel I want to revisit these fundamentals? I'm still feeling pretty comfortable, but I see some change on the horizon. We've been feeling them coming. I feel that there are changes for all of us that we probably haven't seen coming. And I recognize that I have lived most of my life comfortable, but sometimes kind of on the edge. It tends to be a make do. I'll make do. And I still feel the appreciation, I still feel the gratitude, but it isn't what I would call wealth, grand prosperity, or anything like that. You know, I'm making do. And that's been okay. But just this past week, I looked at some potential changes that I see coming, or feel are coming, and I've declared, and this is something that I kind of invite everyone, I'm not going to just step out and make do. I am affirming that all the money and blessings will become visible and tangible before I step out, so that I can concentrate on the mission I see coming to me, and not having to spend energy on waiting for the resources to manifest before I can make a move. Just knowing it coming, and I will know, going back to wisdom, I will know when it's time to make that move. As long as I tune in within and know that this is my purpose to fulfill, and all the resources will be there and available, whatever that purpose turns out to be. And I invite, as we open for discussion, I invite anyone to join me in their own way in knowing this for each one of us. I will know what it is that I am to do, and I will know that the resources abundantly flow so that I can fulfill whatever that purpose is. And so with that, I'm opening it to discussion. And
but just kidding. But they kept saying, what's mine to do? What's mine to do? So that, I kept hearing it again and again. So it became for me something to reflect on. And what it is you should be doing, that's a good focal point. Like sometimes we don't know what's ours to do. But if you can just meditate on what is mine to do, it can come to us. The wisdom can come to us. And I said, what I'm seeking, besides a support system, is I am seeking all ways that can facilitate my ability to tune into divine guidance. That is one of my mantras now, is to try and get divine guidance and discern what is my mission right now. What am I called? What am I called to do? What's mine to do?
I need to manifest, like, what's the next step for me, and what do I need to do with my life, and how do I generate some income, like a lot of income right now. And yesterday, like late afternoon, early evening, I had an aha moment, and I'm going to be working on my affirmation and what exactly I want to manifest, and I'll share that with those of you by Wednesday. But it's that moment of clarity when, spirit is like, yeah, this is what's right.
Wisdom, I think, is a very good word. It usually implies knowledge with some divine inspiration to make it work for a person. Judgment, it's a word I think I use very carefully because judgment can be so many adjectives in front of it. Like human judgment can be the type of judgment that makes a global assessment that's really, really kind of bad, like condemning someone for one action. Uh, uh, um, a spiritual judgment could be entirely the opposite, can be very positive, and I like to use the word evaluation sometimes more than judgment. So I think judgment is different than wisdom. It's a word that one should be very careful when they use that in their thinking of judging something. Prosperity, I think for me, there are kind of some observations I've made of prosperous people. Number one, they're usually very hardworking. They just love what they're doing. They're, in fact, a lot of them say they're paying me to play. Sometimes I don't think it's right, but I take the money. Also, they somehow maybe lucky enough to find out what they in life, what they're doing, they enjoy. Time ceases to sometimes exist when they're doing it, and it's usually related with a service of some kind. And of course, prosperous people are usually kind and giving. So that's some of the thoughts I think when I think of prosperity.
When you were talking, Dan, one of the things that I realized, I like the word discernment in place of the word judgment. Not because judgment is the wrong word or was the wrong word at the time of Charles Fillmore, but maybe because we have put that different connotation. And I think it's interesting that he talked in his book about how that day of judgment, the day of judgment, had been introduced rather than every day is a day of judgment, because it's all about discernment.
Mhm.
And that's where the wisdom comes in. So I agree. Judgment sometimes has the wrong connotation for the kind of thinking that we do. But I think discernment for me is really a powerful word.
Yeah, discernment is a powerful word. It's very much a higher state of human consciousness. Unfortunately, I don't see it as common in it as I would like.
When I first started coming here, and I'd been introduced to Unity a long time ago, but it was always this puzzle. What's mine to do? What's mine to do? And I got clues in different places along the way, and then I got it. My epiphany was just go, do. And when you do, it's like and if you're doing it in the spirit, in attunement with your higher power, there is a sense everywhere in your being that it's right.
Right.
And when I came to this church, that's the way it felt to me. For all the people here, for anything I read, although I have some trouble with the older versions of Fillmore's writings, it makes sense to me now. And so, many times I have found in this course of time that if I just do, and it's for a spirit of service, particularly to my higher power, not necessarily to a specific person, but to my inner sense of my inner power. If I respond to that, everything that I need comes up. I mean, I had had a notion to speak, and it just, oh, here it is, it's right in my face. The book fell open at the page. You know, that whatever was happening on TV news, it just happens to come. And I think that that's one of the things about faith, about trust, that we don't have to puzzle over it. It's really not that hard. We just have to get wholehearted, I say, which is to me mind and heart together, wholeheartedness about our service, whatever it is. And we'll find out by what we get. If we're blocked at every path, maybe we better rethink it. But it's not been my experience since I have been feeling wholehearted service in my heart. So that's all I have to say about that. I'll release the chair.
Beautiful, thank you.
Sometimes I believe, be still, listen, and then act. But sometimes that doesn't work for me. Sometimes I'm still or doing nothing and then feel bored or feel off somehow. So then I just start moving. And once I start moving, there's usually a focus. And once I start focusing, the noise of my mind goes away a little bit. And then I'm open to some clarity. And and also if I'm doing something that's not really fun or something, there's a clarity that says, well, let's do this instead. Or in the future, let's do that. And I worked on the snow blower on the carburetor for about 5 or 6 hours yesterday, and learned a lot about snow blowers, learned about carburetors, and got it working very well, and know what to do the next time, and felt the mastery. But after that, I thought, do I really want to do this again? Nope, I don't. I want to write music. I want to maybe create some sermon, some lessons. You know, these are the things I want to do. So that movement for that one day was not wasted time. I mean, someone got a heck of a snowblower, but it was clarity to me about what I wanted. So thanks.
Wanted to share some prosperity demonstrations that I had from practicing the Marie Kondo life-changing magic of tidying up. I might have shared it in a small group before, but one day I was cleaning through a stack of books and cards in my room, and I found $50 tucked inside a birthday card that I didn't know that I had. And just a week or two ago, or not too long ago, I was cleaning up some old mail that had stacked up and sat for too long. And I found a check from my mom's estate and deposited it. Because of the COVID pandemic, I have not been able to circulate books like I normally do. So the libraries are not taking them, or the county jails. And so I've felt a stagnation in that circulation, and I want to get the circulation going again. I want to thank you all for sharing your ideas, and it's given me a lot to think about in terms of asking what is mine to do.
In closing, I want to say thank you to everyone here who came in today, also everyone on the Zoom who came in today. I want to thank Benjamin for the wonderful sermon. I'm sorry, Sandra. I had to do that.
I will not live that down now.
I know, I might be in trouble now for the week.